Hello, I'm Helen from Helen Kennedy Designs. Today I'd like to teach you the Longtail cast on, which is one of my favourites for a variety of projects. Comment below to let me know your favourite cast on and don't forget to like and subscribe. In this video I'm going to cover how the cast on looks so you can decide whether you want to use it on your project, show you how to do the cast on as a complete beginner, and how to get the perfect tension for the project that you're doing. You can use the YouTube settings to slow down or speed up the video and use the chapter headings in the description below to jump to relevant parts of the video. Let's get started. So when we look at the cast on from the front, we can see this nice rolled edge, and this will appear on the front of your work if you're working in the round, or if you're working flat and work a wrong side row first, this side will appear on the front of your work. And you can see that in the little sample that I have here. You can see the rolled edge below my garter stitch border. It's nice and stretchy. If you turn the cast on over, then what you can see is that you have quite a different look, a row of purl bumps. And if you work the first side when you're working flat as a right side row, this side will appear on the front of your work. And you can see that here at the bottom of my garter stitch border in this sample. It's quite a nice look. I like it to match the garter stitch border, this little row of bumps. So here I've got two samples, both of which are knitted with the same yarn and on the same needles, and they have the same gauge. They measure the same across the top. But across the bottom, they're different. You can see that the one on the left is a nice rectangular pattern, but the one on the right cinches in at the bottom. And this is because the Longtail cast on here is tighter than it is on the other sample. So it's much looser on this one on the left. And that can be useful, actually. If you want to make a rectangular project or cast on the bottom of a sweater, then you might do it like this. But if you want to slightly tighten up a neckline and give a bit more structure, then you might want to do it a little bit tighter. So it depends on your project. Now, they have quite different stretchabilities. So our tighter one, we start at 5 inches and we can stretch out all the way to about 6.5 inches if we pull really hard on it. And so that's 1.5 inches of stretch roughly onto the 5 inches of the gauge. So it doesn't have all that much give, but it's really good for adding structure to a yoke neck sweater cast on for the neckline. The other one, on the other hand, which fits the gauge of this nice rectangular swatch, this one has much, much more stretch. So you might want to use this, for example, at the bottom of a sweater. We start at 5 and we can get all the way to 9. So top of cuff down socks or bottom of a sweater. So let's see how we do this cast on. The first thing you'll want to do is create the right length tail for your cast on. Do this by holding the end of your tail of yarn onto your needle and then wrapping the yarn around the needle, and I wrap 10 times for 10 stitches. And don't do it too tightly, but then if you then use this length of yarn, which is enough for 10 stitches, you use that as like a measuring tool to measure out multiples of 10 stitches. So I'm going to measure out a multiple for 20 stitches. You also need to add a little bit of yarn to hold on to while you're actually doing the cast on. So add an additional about 4 to 6 inches. Otherwise, it's quite hard to hold on to the yarn when you're finishing the cast on. So this point here is where you're going to want to start your cast on. So let's see how we do that. So I've got the point at which I want to start my cast on in my hand. I've got my ball at the top. So the top of that is leading to the ball, and I'm wrapping it over my index finger and my thumb and then holding the 2 strands in the palm of my hand. And you can adjust the tension on the yarn by just moving your fingers around and how tightly you grip it. So that's a question of getting comfortable with how you're holding the yarn. So play around with it a little bit. Now, you can use the sort of tips of your nails to hold it in place. And I've zoomed in a little bit to show you more detail. So take your knitting needle and what you want to do is make sure that you've got the tail end at the bottom and the yarn ball at the top. So push the needle on top of the yarn, twist it towards you, and what you do is create just a loop on the needle. It's going to act as your first stitch, but it's just a twist of yarn on the needle. As you can see here, the yarn's just crossed over. So then what we're going to do is we're going to mostly move our left hand to create the cast on. We're going to hold that first stitch with the index finger of our right hand, flip our hand so that the palm is up, and pull your needle slightly forwards, and you can see that there's a little loop being created around my thumb. And if you very gently wipe your needle up your thumb, touching your thumb all the way gently, you can see that that allows you to grab that loop, if you like, and go through it whilst it's on your thumb. Don't let go of that now. Flip your hand palm down and then scoop your needle from right to left on your index finger, on the yarn that leads up to the index finger, so that it crosses over your needle. Then flip your hand back so it's palm up, and again wipe down your thumb to go back through that loop. Then you can just steady your stitches on your needle with your index finger and let go of that loop with your thumb. What you want to do is then tuck your thumb back into its original position and pull gently on that yarn that's leading to the thumb. There's no point in pulling on the other piece of yarn that's leading up to your index finger, because that's not going to help tighten down that loop. So let's do it again. Hold your stitches on your needle with your index finger, flip your hand palm up, wipe up your thumb to go through the loop, but don't drop it off, twist palm down, swipe right to left to grab the yarn from your index finger, turn your hand over and swipe back down your thumb. And again, let go of the loop and pull gently on the yarn tail that leads down to your thumb. Now, in order to be able to adjust this cast on to be suitable for our project, it's important we understand how it's working. We've got two strands of yarn and they're not joined directly together. They're joined by the first loop that you made on the needle. So the one at the bottom creates the bottom edge of the cast on, and the one at the top creates the loop that's on your needle. And so the yarn from the loop can't feed into the bottom of the cast on to make it more stretchy. And that's important because sometimes what we do to make our cast on a bit looser is to size up our needles, but that really doesn't work here. That just creates a first row of baggy stitches. So you don't want to just use a bigger needle. What you actually want to do is adjust the spacing of the stitches on your needle. So I'm going to show you how to do that with your yarn held in the normal way as you do across your index finger and across your thumb. You want to then rock your hand as you do before, palm up, go up in that loop on your thumb, swipe across the index finger to get that yarn onto your needle, and then swipe back down your thumb. But this time use your index finger on your right hand to create a gap between the stitches. So as you snug down the yarn, those stitches don't slip together, they're held apart on the needle. Okay, so you're creating a gap on your needle, and that is the thing that allows you to get a much looser tension and much more stretch in your edge. So you can continue to do that and just try and keep the gaps fairly consistent. It doesn't matter too much because actually the gaps can even out because yarn can move across the bottom edge between the gaps. So let's do another stitch, and you can see that again I'm using my index finger. I've tucked my thumb back and pulling on that tail to tighten down the stitch, but you can see that my stitches can spread out really easily on the needle. So last stitch, rock your palm up, swipe up the thumb, sweep right to left on your index finger, and then sweep down your thumb again, twisting your hand over, and then let go of the loop and reinsert your thumb and just pull gently down on the yarn tail. And you can see that creates a nice row of stitches that really spread out. So once you get used to doing this cast on, you can get the movements really nice and fluid, and it can be a really quite quick and easy cast on to do. And it's really good because you can use it on a huge variety of projects. If you want to make the sweater neckline cast on slightly firmer so it doesn't stretch out too much, then what you need to do is, as you do the cast on, make the stitches go as close as you can together, because that will create that slightly cinched in edge, and when you knit it, it'll give you a little bit more structure. Do remember you've still got to be able to get your head through the sweater though. It does give you some stretch, but on that 5-inch sample we had about 1.5 inches of stretch. So it does add a little bit more structure and prevent that neckline from stretching out too much. So I find it really useful for that kind of cast on. You can see it here. When I try and pull the stitches apart, they don't pull apart nearly as much as in the previous example. So they're much firmer. So I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I hope you'll give the Longtail cast on a go. Please comment below on your favourite cast on, and happy knitting!